And now we're dealing kind of with that transition period as our newborns have become infants and our infants are now becoming toddlers and our toddlers are now becoming preschoolers. This is I think where most of our children are at, but some of you may be getting ready to head into this stage with infants that are not quite toddlers yet.
You know, every parent knows the first year with a baby is both challenging and exciting. Your baby cries all the time, goes nah, grabs their ears, and you have no idea what any of this means. Luckily, some experts have decoded this unique baby language, and I'm here to share the clues you'll need to figure out what your little bundle of joy is trying to say. Let's start with the way your baby cries. During the first 4 months of life, crying is the main way babies express their needs. Here are 7 types of cries to listen for and what they mean. A calling cry. Ever heard your baby cry for about 5 to 6 seconds and then pause for the next 20 seconds? They're not watching a commercial. That's a calling cry. This means that your baby has been alone for a while and now desperately needs your attention. If you don't respond right away, you'll hear this fascinating cycle of crying a couple more times. So pick your baby up and give them all the loving they need. A hunger cry. This type of cry is very similar to the calling cry, with one little catch. If you don't get in there right away, the crying becomes hysterical quickly. Your baby may also start rotating their head and making smacking sounds with their mouth. This is not the thing from the Exorcist movie. This is just a clear sign that it's time to feed. A pain cry. If you hear a pain cry once, you'll never confuse it with any of the others. This crying is flat and constant, but small hysterical outbursts mean the pain is increasing, and you should call the doctor as soon as possible. This type of crying is also very loud, unless your baby isn't strong enough to make loud noises. A physiological cry. Babies deal with all kinds of bodily functions like us, from having gas to peeing and pooping, and this can cause them more discomfort than you think. Thankfully, babies usually let you know right away by whining and squeaking as they cry. Shh, a sleep cry. Sleep is another problem for babies. Sometimes they just can't. I can relate. You know that old saying that goes, "I slept like a baby"? Meaning calm and peaceful all night long? Well, it really means, I slept and then I woke up every 2 hours and cried. Yeah, well in this case, their crying sounds like an offended and smooth whining, followed by loads of yawning. Sleepy babies also tend to rub their eyes and ears, so you can look out for these red flags as well. A discomfort cry. This crying sounds very irritated and often comes together with fidgeting. Your baby can also flail their arms and legs and arch their backs. This usually means time to check their diaper or change their clothes. They may be either too hot or too cold. A bored cry. This one is extremely common. Your baby cries, you try doing everything you can, but still can't figure out what's wrong. Easy. Your baby is simply frustrated or bored. Take them for a walk outside or around the house. Play a hand or two of poker or something. Nah, just kidding. A simple environment change can stop the crying quickly. Okay, so now that you got the different crying scenarios down, it's time to talk about the other sounds your baby makes. Yep, all these strange sounds have their own meaning. Australian pediatrician Dr. Priscilla Dunstan has been studying early childhood sounds for more than 20 years. She examined 3 to 4 month-old babies of different nationalities during her research. According to Dunstan, your baby starts actively making communication sounds after only 4 months old. Before that, the sounds are just a primary reflex that needs to be figured out. So, here's a little sound cheat sheet. Nah means, "I'm hungry, feed me." This sound comes from your baby pushing their tongue up to the roof of their mouth, triggering the sucking reflex. Is, "I think I'm gonna burp now." With that, the excess air starts leaving the baby's esophagus, and your baby tries to release it from their mouth. And sometimes you get more than just a burp, if you know what I mean. Awa means, "I'm so sleepy and tired." Your baby just folds their lips before yawning, and this sound comes out. Ha is baby speak for "I'm not feeling it, I'm uncomfortable." The main reason is probably an unpleasant feeling of some sort. The baby can give away their feelings by constantly moving and jerking their hands and feet as well. Er indicates "I have a sore tummy, mommy, help." This strange sound can turn into a moan as your baby stretches the belly and exhales. Don't ignore these symptoms, take action right away. And that's basically all the baby sounds you need to know. Feel like a baby whisperer yet? Wait, I have one more important lesson for you: baby movements. Small babies have their own body language that can help you detect their needs and moods. Let's take a look. Arching their backs. Parents know that babies under 2 months old arch their backs a lot. In most cases, it's just a typical response to pain or colic, but there are a couple of exceptions to this rule. If your baby arches their back during eating, it's a sign of reflux. After eating, it means they're full. And if your baby has passed the 2-month-old mark but still does it, no need to worry. They're simply tired or in a bad mood. Rotating their head. This is your baby's way of calming down. You usually see it when they're about to fall asleep or hang out with people they don't know yet. Good thing is that you can help your baby. Just gently rub their back and they'll instantly relax. Grabbing their ears. This may look pretty scary, but it's completely natural. Your baby is simply exploring their body. However, if ear rubbing is followed by intense crying, you should visit the doctor to find the source of the problem. Clenching their fists. Fist or no fist shows how hungry your baby is. A perfectly relaxed hand means that they're full, while strong fist shows that they need baby food right this minute. Noticing this little detail in time can help you prevent the hungry crying and save you tons of time and stress. Lifting their legs. During the first months of your baby's life, colic and tummy pain are almost inevitable. Your baby tries to cope with it on their own by lifting their legs to ease those unpleasant sensations. But any additional help from you is totally welcome. Tummy rubs are awesome. Jerking their arms. Loud sounds, bright lights, and sudden wake-ups provoke the startle reflex in little babies. As a result, they jerk their arms out of fear. In this case, your job is to comfort your baby and make sure that they're all right. And that's it. That's everything you need to know to read your baby's mind. Pediatricians recommend parents talk to their babies as often as possible. Show them all the things around them, explain how they work, or tell cool stories, even if you feel like they don't understand you. This type of constant communication will help them develop their own individual sounds and gestures to express their needs better. Now, actually, we should really show you what the different shades and colors of poo in their diapers mean. But hey, we're out of time here, so we'll have to save that for another day. Do you have any baby communication tricks of your own? Sound off in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a like, share it with your friends, and click subscribe. Stay with us on the bright side.
So I really like that video because it gives a little bit more information about these cues that young babies are giving us. And I want to just kind of tie this in on Priscilla Dunstan as she developed this baby language and was realizing these are reflexes that are happening. Their cries are literally created by their body trying to deal with a pain. So if it's they have gas, their body literally produces that cry sound automatically. It's not something that they think about having to do. It's physiological. It just boop, I am hungry, and they begin to produce that sucking sound, and then when they cry out for you, that creates your neh. So that's something that babies are doing universally, whether you are in America or Russia or China or anywhere in the world, regardless of language. These 5 specific cry sounds are produced by all babies, because again, it's not based on language, it is based on reflex. So it's really important that you respond to these cries for attention, because they are basically requesting to get a need met. So when you are responding and meeting their needs, and they're doing that as a reflex up until about 3 to 4 months. After that point, it's based on whether or not you will respond to that cry. So if for the last 3 months you've been feeding them when they make that nah sound, they will continue to make that sound as they cry. However, if you've been ignoring them or not responding appropriately in those first 3 to 4 months, they don't develop any kind of reason to continue making those specific cries. So they just kind of get lost. That's why it's important to make sure you're meeting those needs, because then those cries become almost like their first vocabulary. They have a very cause and effect that is starting to be developed in their mind. When I make this sound, this is what mommy or daddy does. So it is actually very interesting how it starts as a reflex and then becomes something more as their brain develops. So I also thought this was interesting because it ties in this idea of the initial calling cry and then that hysterical cry. So I had mentioned in my first video that I felt like my child had no medium. It was like there just wasn't a medium setting. It was either, calm, totally perfect, woo, yay, or, 100% full-blown hysterics. I never saw or felt like there was a calling cry from her. It just was like I was sleeping and now I'm angry. And so that was something that was really difficult for me, because I felt like it was just an immediate into hysterics. And so a lot of people like to ignore that initial calling cry. For me, however, I would have been very grateful to get that additional, chance to react before we hit that hysterical point. Now, the interesting thing about this is what happens when your infant that has no medium becomes a toddler. It doesn't go away. So now what used to be a cry of hysterics starts to present in a lot of different ways. And if you don't start working on it as soon as they're a toddler and you start kind of fixing that, you're going to be dealing with it when they're a preschooler, and then even more when they're school age and teenagers and adults. These social emotional skills don't just, develop from ages 0 to 5, but then stop. Like, it is an ongoing lifelong development of skills. So we got to think about this question of like tantrums, because an infant isn't having a tantrum. An infant is crying because they need they have a need that needs to be met. However, when it is a toddler now that is having this tantrum, that's kind of like the calling cry now. That's kind of like the warning. The tantrum is that initial, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do with it, I need something to be done, right? Tantrum. Okay. Now what happens when the tantrum progresses beyond that initial point? That's when you start hitting meltdown territory. And meltdown territory is very, very different from tantrum territory. I learned this firsthand. A meltdown does not stop when you give in. Now, let's say my child is having a tantrum because I won't give them a piece of candy. Therefore, I decide I want them to stop having a tantrum. I give them a piece of candy. They have gotten what they want. Their need is met. Their want has been met, and the tantrum ceases. However, when you're in meltdown territory, you can give in to all of their demands, and it will not matter, because at this point we have now gone past a point of it being an expression of their frustration. And now it's kind of back to that hysterical, full blown, it's like a whole body reaction that is happening. You can give in at this point, but it doesn't stop the meltdown. You now have to find a different way to break through that meltdown that is happening, because it's no longer about whatever set them off to begin with. So let's think about what it can look like when it's not a meltdown. There are a lot of different reactions. It might be a tantrum, it might be a meltdown, but then we also have kind of this alternative of what do we see in kids who are frustrated. Sometimes we see things like self-harm. Sometimes we see things like violent behavior, like harm or physical aggression towards others. And that can be their peers, that can be animals. They kind of lash out in those moments. You might have a kid that's into destruction. So it's now not aggression towards people, but it's aggression towards objects. This is like people that might get angry and destroy something, or somebody that would punch a hole in a wall. This is like that destruction should have been dealt with in these early ages. And then, of course, also that tantrum / meltdown. So there's a lot of different ways that these frustrations tend to manifest, and we kind of have to break our way through them. So one of the things that has to be done, and I think it kind of helps makes it easier to troubleshoot and problem solve what's happening, why are they behaving in that way, what should I do to fix it, but not just give in. So one of the things that kind of helped me was, like, if you consider it that there's that frustration, it's usually because they're unable to get their needs or their wants met. And a lot of times it's that they're unable to get their way. And if so, well, why? Why are they unable to get their needs and wants met? And I think a lot of us are encountering the very first one here. Do they struggle to communicate efficiently? I know for Olivia, right at that 18-month to 2-year point, that was when we saw the majority of our self-harm behaviors. Super concerning self-harm, throwing yourself on the floor, but then like actually hitting your head on the floor repeatedly. Things like that. We also saw a lot of like lashing out in the form of harm, a lot of injuries to her sister, and that kind of includes like kids that are hitting. That's going to include our kids that are biting. A lot of times it comes back to being able to communicate efficiently. And let's say they can communicate efficiently. We got a kid that's a talker, but they still are having these frustrating challenges and meltdowns. Maybe are they struggling to tolerate frustration when they don't get their way? So like now they've already not gotten their way, and it's kind of the aftermath that they struggle with. Or maybe they struggle to navigate like challenging situations with others on their own. So they're striving for independence, and they aren't able to kind of like do it by themselves, or they're not able to like deal with it afterwards. Those are very different causes, and so they all have to be kind of pinpointed and dealt with based on what is really triggering the behavior. So if you think about the kids in your care, what triggers these moments where we see the challenging behavior? Because it's not about the hitting. The hitting is just the result. It's just the symptom. You got to fix what caused them to do the hitting. Because if you can fix that, there is no need to hit. So that kind of changes your viewpoint on dealing with these behaviors. It's not about what they're doing, it's why they're doing it. And it really comes down to developing those social emotional skills. Like, we constantly use this term, and it's really, we're helping kids practice self-regulation. So in short, we want to build up their ability to help them manage their own emotions. And it's not one single thing. It's not like one solution and now you can manage your emotions. No, it is like a tool belt. There has to be multiple different skills, multiple different things that they can fall back on. And once you teach them these skills, it's not just that they know the skills, it's that they can do them in that moment of need. That's when you have really reached that point of like, this self-regulation skill has become useful because I actually use it to manage a situation that is challenging. Okay, so when you do things like show a kid a breathing activity, it is great if the kid knows the breathing activity, but if you are not there navigating, like helping them to navigate that situation, cueing them in to when they should use these skills, helping them use words, putting names to these feelings, names to these emotions, without us helping to show them how to navigate a difficult situation, they don't just learn it out of nowhere. We have to take more of an intentional, active role in modeling these behaviors initially, helping them to implement the behavior so that they don't just break down and give up and then now it's back to hitting and I bit a chunk out of little Timmy's arm. So this is kind of this idea of like, it's more than just saying use your words. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? What words am I supposed to use? How do I use them? Like, it just, I think we have these ideas, but we don't put our money where our mouth is. And so that's kind of what I want us to learn by the end of this training. So when we get to video 4, we're really going to look at what does that actually look like to practice these skills? What does it actually look like to navigate through a situation that has gone to hot mess territory? So we've reached the end of this one. And if you haven't commented, make sure that you do comment on this video right on the post. And I'd love to know about different challenging behaviors that you are facing. If you have any thoughts on what do you do to practice or build up social emotional skills, like share the wealth if you've got any great ideas that work. I would love to create kind of a database for us, like, here are 101 ways to get a kid to calm down. That's kind of where, this is all leading towards. So I'd love it if you share those things in this video, in your comments. Take a little quick break. Our next video is going to be me literally talking. I'm going to be getting a little personal with my story, and you're going to get to actually see my face because I miss you guys so much being in person. And so that is something that I'm doing because I want you to see me and I want to see you in that sense. So we're going to get a little bit of story time coming. That should be coming up right about 7. And we will see you again very soon on the next post.